Hey guys, today we're going to paint a radiator, and this is on the ECTO-1 from Eagle Moss. And first of all, let me say I haven't got the foggiest idea what I'm doing. I just do what I do until it looks good. And in this situation, whenever I paint anything, I try to look at some reference material, and in this case, I just Googled 59 Cadillac radiators, and you get anywhere from brand spanking new pretty ones that people are trying to sell versus old beat up crusty ones. And just making sure these screws are tight there. And I think I'm going to put this somewhere in between. I think that on this ECTO-1, you remember in the movie, Ray says he found the car, and he goes down the list of everything that it needs. I'm thinking that at some point between 1959 and the early 80s, when Ghostbusters was made, that they probably replaced the radiator. So maybe the radiator that was in the ECTO-1 wasn't the original. So it might be a little bit newer than some of the other parts. But I also believe that it wasn't cared for, so it's going to be dirty and grungy and gross. Anyway, when I went looking for reference material, most of the radiators that I saw had a bit of shine still to them. They were dirty. Some of them were rusty, but the undercoat that kind of came out was still shiny. So, the very first thing I did was painted with the Tamiya color and, the glossy black, just to get a base. The nice thing about this, for me, is if I screw this up, all I have to do is paint it black again, and I can start all over again. So I really do have quite a bit of leeway as far as what I'm going to do to this. Now, what I've seen on most of them is some watermarks on the top of the radiator. I've seen some rust that kind of peeks through, but for the most part, I do see kind of a shiny metallic color. So everything that I do right now is going to be mostly covered up by some rub and buff in the end. But the first thing I'm going to do, I think, is probably prepare some rust blotches. And for that kind of stuff, I'm really having a good time with the Vallejo Pigments. And what I like about them is they come in powder form, and you can do a lot of different things to them. You can put it on in powder form, and then wipe some pigment binder over the top of that, and that'll give you one look. I'm gonna wipe some of that off. The other thing you can do, and this is what I'm going to do today, is you can make your own, make your own paint with the pigment binder, or you can also mix water with it too, and they end up having slightly different looks in the end. In this case, the binder is kind of a milky solution. You can mix it up all the way, you can mix it up a little bit. In this case, I kind of want some flakes, so I'm not going to mix it up all of the way. And then I'm going to get my trusty wide brush, and what I like to do is splatter it. Now, because I got some of the pigment on it already, it's getting kind of hard to see. but it's there. I do like the little splatters. Do some more of that. I am in the process of doing this to the underside of the ECTO-1 right now, and that is a tedious process because there's no such thing as one color of dirt or one type of rust. So I'm going over it many times, and then I keep adding parts to it too, so then those have to be added to it. Okay, so we got one look on the front, one look on the back, and this might be okay because the front of the grill is going to get the majority of the air coming through. So now I think what I'm going to do is blend some of that in. I'll even get some of this wet and blend some of that in. Wipe some of it off, and then we're going to hit it with a different color. And then we're going to let it dry. And for me, it's going to be probably a couple hours and a couple of passes on this, but for you, it shouldn't be too long. Through the magic of pausing. Okay, so now we're going to go over it with a different lighter color. And this one's called Dark Yellow Ochre. And this actually is going to be way too light, so I'm going to add one of the other darker colors to it, but it's going to be mostly that color. So to that, I'm going to add Burnt Umber. Okay. And then some more of the pigment binder. And this one I'm going to put in quite a bit because I want it to be pretty wet. Because I really want this to fly. And what I end up with is just kind of a nice dirty color. And just going to splatter it just like I did the other one. That looks like dirt. That looks like bugs. That looks like all kinds of junk. Oh, that's too much. But that's okay. Because we're just going to wipe it right off with the trusty rag. And see, that's another inconsistency that I didn't plan on. But inconsistencies happen. Okay. And then I'm going to do one more pass. And then we're going to let the bottom part dry. And on this, we're going to go back more towards the rust, where I'm going to add, and this is more of an acrylic paint, yeah, acrylic colors. This is also Vallejo model color, and this one's called Red Leather. And this one's Saddle Brown. And what I'm going to do with this is kind of lay them right next to each other. You can see that on my palette over here, it's pretty dirty. And a lot of that, what I've done is, since right now what I'm mostly doing is mostly weathering. And for me, weathering means making it dirty. I'm not cleaning this palette very much because I kind of like the inconsistencies of the color that I pick up. So the last thing I want to do is get things clean. So what I'm going to do is get my brush pretty wet, and then I'm going to go into both of the colors, and hopefully I get a little bit of each color, which I have a little bit. And we're going to splatter it some more. Okay, and remember, like I said, once this dries, I'm pretty much going to be going over most of this with Rub and Buff to bring out some of the metallic looking colors. Okay, so one of the things that I wanted to do before we got too far is I said that I wanted to put some water stains and just some other dirty stains on top. And for that, I've got these really neat pens. This is an enamel paint marker, and this is from Creative Effects. So far I like it pretty good. This one's called Earth color, which is exactly what we're dealing with. And so this is quite wet, and I just kind of dab it, and it works similar like a whiteout marker. As you can see, because it's so wet, it is it's like a wash, but because it's enamel, it's a little thinner than the acrylic stuff. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to blow on this and let it dry a little bit. And then I'm going to see how much of this I can actually wipe off. See? Wiping it off. And there we go. So it does look like something spilled on there. Maybe got a little oxidation. And that's probably good. I might do one more pass a little differently. Let it just spill over the edge. There we go. Alright. So that's good enough for that. We're going to let that dry for now. And like I said, I'm going to be covering most of that up with probably some Rub and Buff. The other thing that I wanted to do is it comes with a radiator cap, and in the radiator cap that I've seen, you can see that this is already cast in kind of a metallic looking plastic. They probably put the paint in the plastic. Most of the radiator caps are a little more shiny, a little more chromy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give this a real good chrome color. And then, after I give it a good chrome color, then I'm going to dull it up a little bit. But before I give it the chrome color, I'm going to hit it with a little bit of sandpaper. Just to give a little bit of texture to the paint. I hear that makes a difference. Just give it some grab. Okay. And the chrome that I'm going to be putting on, and I've got this little paint tray with these little clips, so I don't have to get my fingers all dirty. Okay, so the chrome that I'm going to be putting on is the liquid chrome from Molto. I learned about this on Adam Savage's website, Tested. Highly recommend. It makes even idiots like me feel like they know what they're doing. And this stuff is the best chrome covering I've ever seen. And this is going to end up really looking like a shiny metal, which is awesome. It's a little bit better base than where we started with the other plastic color. Let's get it in there nice and good. Yeah, it's good. So once that dries, then I'll be able to dirtify it. And that looks pretty good. Okay, so we're gonna let this sit and dry, and the radiator's got to dry, and then we'll hit it with some rub and buff and see how that looks. And if I don't like it, I'm gonna paint it black and start all over again. All right, these guys have dried now. See how nice and shiny that is? That's great. We're going to set that aside. And this guy's dry, which is nice. And now we're going to put some rub and buff on it. Buff. There we go. Silver leaf. And I like these little cosmetic wedges that I stole from my wife. She uses them for makeup. Now she can't find them. Just kidding. Please keep in mind that this is by no means a how-to. I can't preface this enough that I haven't got the foggiest idea what I'm doing. And this is very simply a how I do it. Your results may vary, and I have no idea what I'm doing. I really don't. So I just figured it'd be fun to take other people along with the journey. So now what I'm going to do, I'm probably going to start on the other side because this is actually the back side. So let's see how this goes. And I'm just going to lightly, very, very lightly come across the top of this. And I don't want to totally cover up everything that I did. I'm just getting just a little bit There we go. And I'm trying not to be super consistent about it. I equate my weathering to Mr. Miyagi's bonsai instructions. You close your eyes and picture it in your head, and then you just create that. Make sure that that's what you end up seeing when you're done. And if it's really what's in your head, how can that be wrong, right? So now the trick to that is what is pictured in my head is formulated by the web references that I look at beforehand in most cases. So I am not going super heavy on this because I still want you to be able to see some of the dirt and grime from coming down from inside. But I'm just going right over the tops of the detail. And this is probably stage 2 of 3 for me, because even after I do this, then I'm going to come back with my Lovato wash, which I've kind of fallen in love with, because I feel like it gives me what looks like a pretty good oil slick color. It's just kind of a dirty yellow brown. And like I said, I've kind of fallen in love with that color. But look what happens when I just kind of lightly go across the top of this. I'm going to go in a couple of different directions so that it gets it from both sides. I don't know how much of this is translating to the camera, but I can still see all of the color and all of the detail that was coming from the inside, or coming from the underside where we splattered all that color on. And I might do some more afterwards. We'll just see how it looks, but so far this is looking pretty good. So now what I'm doing is I'm getting the clean side and I'm trying to wipe as much of it off as I can. And I think that's part of the buffing part of it. I don't know, it kind of shines it up. This paint is like a metal infused wax. And so you do this and it kind of buffs it and shines it a little bit. And it gives it a nice metallic look. But when I went and did my reference research, you type in 1959 Radiator, this is kind of what you see. So, alright. So now I'm going to run over it with a little bit of the dirty wash, and we'll see how that ends up looking. And so for that, here's right here. I'm going to put some in here. Not a lot, just a couple of drops. We're going to do two things. First thing I'm going to do is just get some of my, and this is just some of the dirty water. I'm going to get it wet. Not a lot. Just enough to start getting down in the cracks and crevices, and that'll help the wash to get down in there too. And I found that the Rub and Buff, because of what it's made of, you can do it right afterwards. It doesn't seem to be a problem. I'm going to put some of this water in wash too, because I really want it to be thin and wet. Okay, so now I've got that. I'm going to use a smaller brush, because I don't want it everywhere. I want it in cracks and crevices, and I want it kind of down at the bottom. But we're just going to let it, drip. And you see how I'm letting it drip? I don't know if that shows up. There we go. Now I'll put some of it up on the top. And this has just got kind of a nice yellowish brown, kind of a dirty oil color to it. Now I might come back over it with the earth color on the top, because that really did give it kind of the wet water stains that I was looking for. But I really want this just to kind of drip and get into the crevices. So I'm trying to get it nice and wet. Mostly from the top, and then down on the ledges down here. So just like everything, I'm going to let this dry for a little bit. Then I'm going to try to clean it off. Yep, it's dirty. Okay. And so then I might end up doing this a couple more times. But I don't know. It's looking pretty good. Maybe I come back over it with a black wash. I don't know. There's going to be a hose right here. So I feel like this is a spot where maybe it would leak. So I'm kind of fine with it being right there. There we go. There we go. I'm kind of happy with that. Anyway, that's my radiator. Again, I can't preface this enough. This is not a how-to, because I have no idea what I'm doing. But this is a how I did it type thing. So, one of the next instructions on this build is to put this guy on, and it is keyed, so we can put it on in the right direction. And again, this is way too clean and pretty, but I'm going to do it anyway. We're going to put it on. And now we're going to get it dirty too. Okay, and so what I like about this, if you can see, that it pulls up in the middle and it leaves the outsides where it's nice and clean, because you know your hands are on the outside, so the outside of it is going to be clean. So I'm going to let this dry for a little bit, and then I'm going to take some of it off. If I was Adam Savage right now, I'd be having my yellow hairdryer blowing. I do have one, but that's downstairs. I don't know why I haven't brought it up yet. I think that's gonna dry and be perfect. Now I might go back over that with a black wash, but I don't know. This is looking pretty good to me. This is pretty close to my bonsai tree. So I'll give you a look. That looks like a 30-year-old radiator to me, maybe. So we'll let that sit there and dry. Thanks for coming on this journey with me.